At 13:47 hours, 18 Russian armored vehicles raced down a muddy dirt road near Kostiantan to Nivka, pushing towards their jumping-off point for tomorrow's attack. The column commander had timed it perfectly. Heavy rain had grounded Ukrainian drones all morning, but unknown to the Russians, 3 Ukrainian drone teams had been watching the weather radar for hours, and the storm cell was breaking up faster than anyone predicted. In a matter of minutes, clear skies would turn a safe road march into a devastating ambush. 3 Ukrainian drone teams scrambled into action as 24 FPV drones powered up simultaneously across their concealed positions, motors spinning from idle to maximum RPM in 2 seconds. The sudden break in weather meant visibility jumped from 200 meters to 2 kilometers instantly. The Russian column was clearly visible, their single-file formation stretching 400 meters along the muddy road with just 10 minutes remaining before they'd reach the concrete structures of an abandoned collective farm. If they made it there, those tanks would wreak havoc tomorrow. The column had to be stopped now. However, the instant those drones transmitted their first control signals, Russian detection systems locked on. A nearby Russian SER-VSS-5 electronic warfare array identified the emissions in 0.3 seconds. Control signals broadcasting on standard FPV frequencies lit up their screens like flares in the electromagnetic spectrum. Within 8 kilometers range, the system triangulated the Ukrainian positions to within 25 meters, accurate enough for precision artillery strikes that could eliminate the operators before their drones ever reached the target. The data flowed instantly through encrypted channels to artillery batteries positioned 12 kilometers behind the advancing column. Gun crews already loading across local guided rounds. Each drone climbed fast through dissipating rain clouds, racing to gain altitude before the Russians could react. But gaining altitude meant exposing their signals above terrain masking. The area where the radar returns are naturally blocked by ground features, and the Russian Orlan 30 reconnaissance drone circling at 2,000 meters. Its camera pod swung toward the launch signatures. Infrared sensors picking up heat blooms from the operator's equipment despite their thermal blankets, data linking precise coordinates back to waiting artillery tubes. The Orlan 30 was able to do this because its gimbal-mounted laser designator painted targets with a coated infrared beam that Fresno rounds could home in on during their terminal phase. The drone would maintain the laser on target for the shell's entire 30-second flight time, adjusting for wind drift and target movement. This data synchronized with the Zoopark M1's calculations through the Russian tactical network. The radar provided initial firing solutions while the Orlan provided terminal guidance. Together, they created a targeting chain that could put a 152mm shell within 2 meters of a target at 15-kilometer range. Without the Orleans laser guidance, conventional artillery at this distance would scatter across a 50-meter cycle. Good enough for area targets, but useless against individual bunkers. The lead Ukrainian team watched the tactical display as the Russian Zoopark M1 counter-battery radar painted their position with increasing precision. The system worked by measuring the time difference of signal arrival at 3 separate receivers spread across the battlefield. When a drone transmitted, each receiver logged the exact microsecond the signal arrived. Since radio waves travel at light speed, even Nancon differences revealed distance variations. 3 receivers created intersecting lines that pinpointed the transmission source like a mathematical crosshair. In 90 seconds, Krasnopo guided artillery rounds would impact with enough explosive power to collapse any bunker not built from reinforced concrete. And these positions were just earth and timber. The stakes for the first Ukrainian team were simple. Hand off control and run or get blasted. They initiated transfer procedures to the second team while Krasnov rounds were already in flight. 152mm shells with laser seekers that could adjust trajectory in the final seconds of flight to follow the Orleans designation. 8 drones under their control switched to GPS waypoint following, a 3-second vulnerability window where the drones flew blind while control frequencies synchronized with the new operators 800 meters away. 3 seconds at 140 kilometers per hour meant 116 meters of unguided flight where anything could happen. If the handoff failed, then those 8 drones would fly straight into the ground or off course, reducing the attack force by a third before it even began. The handoff completed with a half-second to spare as the first team sprinted through wheat stubble carrying 20-kilogram equipment bags. Then behind them, their bunker erupted as shells found their mark 45 seconds after they left. On the Russian side, the columns B, M, PT, Terminator vehicles were tracking multiple air contacts. These specialized vehicles packed dual 30mm autot cannons, AG-17D grenade launchers with 300 rounds each, and 4 Attica anti-tank missiles. Enough firepower to create an anti-drone umbrella over the entire column. Their turrets elevated as drone signatures populated threat displays. The second team now controlled 16 drones, double the electromagnetic signature impossible to miss. The Orland 30 overhead locked their position with its infrared laser, while the SERVSS-5 detected the 300 millisecond spike when both operators transmitted during takeoff. 10-meter accuracy instead of 25. They had 90 seconds before chronobal rounds arrived. Artillery rounds were already walking toward them. The first impacted 200 meters away, throwing dirt into the air. The operators kept their hands steady on the controls despite the ground shaking. 16 drone feeds flickered across their screens, each one racing toward the Russian column at 140 kilometers per hour. The math was simple. 45 seconds for Russian guns to recalculate, 30 for rounds to fly, but only 1.5 seconds to transfer control if needed. The third team watched their frequency scanners. Systems powered, ready to grab control the instant Team 2 started running. Another shell hit closer, 150 meters. Now the operators could feel the concussion in their chest. They initiated the handoff sequence while simultaneously grabbing their critical gear. No time for anything else. 24 drones converged from 3 launch sites, creating an immediate airspace problem. At 140 kilometers per hour, drones from different positions would reach the same point simultaneously, plastic confetti if they collided. Team 1's drones at 150 meters altitude from the northwest. Team 2's at 180 from the northeast. Team 3's at 120 from the south. 5-second separation at the 2-kilometer mark. The operators couldn't see each other's drones through the static. They could only trust the choreography they practiced. The approaching storm cell was now visible, a wall of rain advancing at 30 kilometers per hour. Lightning flickered within it. Each strike an electromagnetic pulse that could scramble control signals. 4 minutes until it arrived. Battery levels at 60%. 1 attack run, no second chances. The Russian column was 2 kilometers away and closing. Artillery rounds now bracketed the second team's position, each impact closer than the last as Russian gunners walked their fire onto the target. The operators had 20 seconds before rounds would land directly on their position. They initiated handoff to the third team while simultaneously gathering their most critical equipment. The backup tablets that could resume control if needed. Everything else, sleeping bags, rations, personal items, stayed behind. The third team smoothly accepted control of all 24 drones, their systems managing the maximum load while the second team sprinted through parallel furrows in the wheat field using the micro-terrain for whatever cover it provided. 24 drones converging from 3 launch sites created an immediate airspace problem that could destroy the attack before the Russians fired a shot. At 140 kilometers per hour closure rate, drones launched from different positions would reach the same airspace simultaneously, and 2 racing quads colliding meant both turned into plastic confetti. The teams had practiced this convergence for weeks. Team 1's drones would approach at 150 meters altitude from the northwest. Team 2's at 180 meters from the northwest. Team 3's at 120 meters from the south. Each team had specific timing gates. Team 1 would reach the 2-kilometer mark at T-minus 45 seconds. Team 2 at T-minus 40. Team 3 at T-minus 35. This 5-second separation meant they'd arrive in sequence, not simultaneously. But theory and practice diverged when video feeds degraded to static. The operators couldn't see each other's drones, only their own through increasingly poor signals. They had to trust the choreography, maintaining altitude discipline even when wind shear pushed them up or down by 20 meters. One team climbing to avoid turbulence could put them directly into another team's flight path. The deconliction relied entirely on disciplined altitude management and precise timing. Making things worse, the approaching storm cell was now visible to the naked eye. A wall of rain advancing at 30 kilometers per hour that would arrive in 4 minutes. Lightning flickered within it, each strike generating electromagnetic pulses that would scramble drone control signals if they got too close. The window for attack was closing from both ends. Artillery hunting the operators on one side, weather approaching from the other. The drones had to reach their targets in the next 90 seconds or the entire operation would fail. Battery levels had dropped to 60% from fighting increasing headwinds, giving them exactly one attack run with no possibility of a second chance. Miss now and the column would escape. The BMPT Terminators were built for exactly this moment. Despite lacking dismounted infantry support, the Russian column had brought these specialized vehicles specifically to counter drone swarms. As 20 drones entered their engagement envelope, both Terminators opened fire simultaneously. Their AG-17D automatic grenade launchers could fire 400 rounds per minute of 30mm grenades with programmable airburst fuses, each round exploding at a preset distance to create a wall of shrapnel. The two A-42 auto cannons use similar technology, their shells detonating in proximity patterns designed to destroy helicopters and drones. The fire control computer could track up to 6 targets simultaneously, calculating lead angles and burst patterns faster than human reflexes. In theory, 2 Terminators could create an impenetrable dome of exploding metal above the collar. But the system had a fatal flaw. It was designed to engage 6 targets, not 20. The targeting computer prioritized threats by size and speed, constantly recalculating as new contacts appeared. With 20 drones approaching, the system stuttered, jumping between targets without completing engagement sequences. Worse, the turrets would only traverse 185 degrees. Fast rotation, but not instant. Drones approaching from opposite sides forced the turrets to choose, leaving half the threats unengaged. The Ukrainian operators knew this from experience. The Terminator's fire control used a Soviet-era algorithm that prioritized by radar cross-section and closing velocity. But FPV drones all looked identical. Same size, same speed. The system couldn't prioritize, so it constantly reshuffled the target queue, spending more time recalculating than engaging. They specifically synchronized the attack to exploit this flaw, presenting more targets than the system could process from angles that it couldn't simultaneously cover. Still, 3 drones disintegrated when 30mm rounds detonated close enough. Plastic frames and electronics scattering across the wheat field. One tumbled from the sky, trailing smoke after fragments punctured its battery pack. The losses were expected. 20 drones survived the defensive fire and entered their terminal die phase. Through static field video feeds, operators selected specific impact points. The gap between turret and hull, the engine deck grills, the vision blocks, the spaces where cage armor, those jury-rigged cages you see around the tanks on top of the existing armor, didn't quite meet. Those weren't random strikes, but surgical hits on points where 3 kilograms of shape charge could penetrate. The lead tank commander saw them coming and threw his T-72 into reverse, but the BMP behind him couldn't move fast enough. The vehicles collided with a grinding crash, tracks tangling in the mud. 20 impacts occurred across 8 seconds, shape charges punching through weak points rather than main armor. A drone found the gap in a tank's gauge armor, detonating against the turret ring and jamming it in place. Another hit a BMP's open rear door, the explosion destroying the engine and starting an electrical fire. The BMPT Terminators took hits to their optical systems and engine compartments. Mobility and firepower knocked out even if the crew survived. Not every strike was perfect. Several drones hit cage armor and detonated harmlessly outside. Airshake charges wasted on steel bars designed exactly for this purpose. 2 drones struck too shallow an angle on turret armor and failed to penetrate. But enough drones found their marks. Engine compartments burning, optics destroyed, tracks blown off, turrets jammed. Within 90 seconds of first impact, 12 vehicles were immobilized or burning. Crews began abandoning their vehicles, some running for drainage ditches, others toward the tree line. 3 vehicles tried to escape off-road but immediately bogged down in the mud saturated by morning rain. Tracks spinning helplessly as they sank. The aftermath unfolded over the next 10 minutes as crews fled and vehicles burned. 4 remaining drones circled, their operators watching for any vehicle that might be recoverable. One by one, those drones found Russian vehicles that were still serviceable and then promptly made them a part of the Ukrainian countryside. Bye for now.